Bam is an ancient city in Iran. At one point, it was a crucial stopping destination along the Silk Road, and the citadel in the middle of the city made Bam one of Iran's most popular tourist destinations ever since the early 1950s. So, how was this monumental city reduced to this in a matter of hours? The answer is a 6.6 magnitude earthquake that struck the city at 5:26 a.m. on December 26, 2003. The site of the earthquake was a previously unknown fault that lay directly underneath Bam. These blind faults is what they're called, occur when fractures in the earth don't quite reach the surface. And these are dangerous because the plates that make the fault can still move, but there's no indication on the surface that any sort of fault is present. And what caused the earthquake itself was a shift in the transform boundary that happened to cut almost directly through the center of Bam. The action of the Arabian plate sliding northward along the Eurasian plate sent shock waves to the earth. This is also known as a right lateral strike slip fault and is very similar to the San Andreas fault in the United States. It's called right lateral because no matter which side of the fault you're standing on, everything on the other side of the fault would appear to be shifting to the right as the plates moved. The earthquake rupture was 24 kilometers in length, but little change occurred to the landscape itself because the boundary slip was a maximum of 270 centimeters. And this diagram is just describing the motion of transform boundaries. The damage from the earthquake was monumental. 90% of the city's buildings and infrastructure were completely leveled, and of the 142,000 people living in the entire Bam subprovince, at least 31,000 lost their lives, an additional 20,000 were injured, and approximately 100,000 people were left homeless. Survivors of the earthquake were left to deal with unclean water and crop failure, as an outdated water distribution system had been badly damaged during the earthquake. The effects of the destruction were amplified by the people's inadequate earthquake education, a nationwide lack of disaster management, and unsafe building practices that were used throughout the entire city. So most of the buildings were homemade. They were made of mud brick and cement because these were and cheaper than many other safer building alternatives. And the Iranian government didn't enforce any seismic regulatory codes while the city was being built in modern day. Additionally, disagreement within the government made rebuilding a lot more difficult. The temporary tents erected to house displaced survivors, they were not equipped to handle the year's harsh winter, so many people died after the earthquake just due to exposure to the elements. Additionally, the allowance of humanitarian aid somewhat relieved tensions between the United States and Iran. The earthquake did occur in 2003. Certain sanctions were lifted off of Iran during that time under the condition that nuclear interests could be better monitored.
After the Bam earthquake, in most of the places, the water system broke and it affected the agricultural area and the rural areas as well. In the cities, the petroleum tanks and the drainage system broke and they had to fix everything up again. It affected the tourism as well because many ancient monuments were destroyed and they had to restore everything. And this is a picture of before earthquake and after earthquake. So the after earthquake picture is on right and before is on left. As you can see, most of the city was destroyed, and the government wanted to move the capital from Tehran to a new place because they had a fear that a bigger earthquake might occur again and it would destroy many more places. And after the earthquake, the citadel capital was restored.
Any environmental damage was caused by water contamination and soil contamination from broken petroleum storage tanks. Economic effects were heavily felt in areas of agriculture and tourism because of crop failures and the destruction of the citadel. The geosphere is the Earth system most involved with this event because the movement of the tectonic plates are part of the geosphere. And the hydrosphere became involved when deep wells were damaged, and the biosphere played a role when crops and humans suffered. It was a very slow process, but BAM was rebuilt, and this time all the structures were built following a seismic building code from 1989. Other than the proper rebuilding of BAM, it doesn't seem like much else was changed by the Iranian government. After the earthquake, it was noted by professors in Tehran that earthquake education was severely lacking. In the years immediately following the earthquake, it became apparent that Iran needed a seismic relief backbone, and many citizens blamed the government for not providing it.